Howdy folks, welcome to the show. I am proud to report, as I'm sure you've heard the news, the Edmonton Oilers are going off to the Stanley Cup final. Let's talk about how they won the Clarence Campbell Trophy by beating the Dallas Stars. They won Game 1 in Dallas in OT 3-2 in a good matchup, good tight matchup. Game 2 was also a good tight matchup, this time favoring the Dallas Stars with a 3-1 victory for the Stars. Game 3, first one in Edmonton. The crowd is loud and proud, but the Stars win 5-3. This is a game where there's a lot of anger towards Darnell Nurse, and even though I've talked about how much I've supported him at times, it was pretty hard to support him during that game. There's a lot of lineup shifting for the Oilers. Desharnais actually was brought out of the lineup. I think he'll be back for the Florida Panthers as he's kind of a big, tall brute. I was disappointed to see him drawn out, and I was worried about our penalty kill, but as you can see by the stats on the left, it didn't affect the penalty kill, thankfully. In came Broberg to be on line 3 with Cody Ceci, who was demoted down to line 3. Brett Kulak was brought up to line 2 with Darnell Nurse, and the line would do pretty good. They had a rocky start in Game 4, which we'll get to, but they ended up doing really good throughout the series. As well as for forwards, there's always line shifting with the Oilers and player shifting across the lines, but McLeod had a one-game absence, and he just to wake him up a bit, he was brought back in, and he would score a goal. Perry was brought in to kind of get into their faces. Carrick had a game absence, and he was eventually brought in. I think Ryan was brought out. Who else? Fogle was actually brought out. He hadn't been producing as well, which is unfortunate, but we'll see. Anyways, those lineup changes did work, as after going down the series 2-1, the Oilers would win the 3 next games. One in Dallas. The last one in Edmonton, where they won 5-2. Brett Kulak and Darnell Nurse were on the ice for both of those first 2 goals, but after that, both of those 2 together were pretty good, which I've talked about in another video. Game 5, the Oilers handled the Dallas Stars with a 3-1 win in Dallas. Up to this point, the Oilers have outshot the Stars in every single game. They've controlled the series. It's been a matter of Ottinger trying to steal what he can, and Skinner not being terrible. Skinner had a really good series. Besides Game 4, he had a really good series. And he would have his best game since his 33-save shutout in round 1 in Game 6. When the Oilers needed him most, he answered the call. The Oilers play their worst game I've ever seen, 5-on-5 wise. They had a good power play and a great penalty kill, but 5-on-5 wise, it was the worst game I've ever seen from the Oilers. In my, I'm young. I'm sure if I watched more when I was a kid during the decade of darkness, I'd probably see worse, but this was pretty dang bad. So bad it actually set some records, because the Oilers ended up winning this game 2-1, as you can see, despite being outshot. I know I wrote Edmonton, but they were outshot 34-10 by Dallas. Skinner was absolutely amazing. You want Ottinger to be better than having 8 saves on 10 shots, but at the same time, the David goal is really, really nice. And the other goal's kind of difficult to stop as well. But still, it's pretty hard to excuse an 8 out of 10 performance from your goalie, especially when you have 34 shots on the other guy who makes 33 saves. So the history from that, I'm just bringing it up on my phone to repeat to you here. Via Elliot Friedman, with having only 10 shots. Oh, that is the wrong quote. There we go. With having only 10 shots in the conference finals, it is the fewest that a team has ever gotten while still clinching the conference championships. The previous record was when Boston knocked out the Capitals in 1990, despite only having 17 shots to go on to lose to the Oilers in the finals. Speaking of 1990, that was the last time the Oilers have been in the have won the Stanley Cup. They were in the finals in 2006. The shot differential of 24 is also a record by one. It is the biggest shot differential by a team that would go on to win the series in that game and clinched the conference finals. The previous record was when Nashville got outshot 41-18 by the Anaheim Ducks in Game 6 of the 2017 Western Conference Final. The Predators, however, won that game 6-3 thanks to Pekka Rinne. So the Oilers are set up for the Panthers. Before we get to that, let's talk about how they played. A lot of it comes from the Stars. There's lots of historic history making between McDavid and Draisaitl when it comes to the numbers, which are all great and fun to talk about and good on them, but of course their focus is on the Stanley Cup. Part of why they didn't touch the Clarence Campbell Trophy the same way the Panthers didn't touch the Prince of Wales Trophy. Throughout the series, the Oilers were the better team. Much like how the Panthers dominated the Rangers, the Oilers dominated the Stars until Game 6, but still won. The Oilers outshot the Dallas Stars slightly, though those numbers are skewed because of the 34-10 shot differential in Game 6. The Oilers had better conversion rates, had better shot chances, and shot at 26% success rate from high danger zones. Ottinger wasn't making many saves up close. Dallas was the better blocking team. Part of that has to do with a lot of time they spend in the defensive zone, but they are a really good blocking team. Chris Tanev's part of that story, and he's part of the story as well as being injured, but he always does seem to get injured, and that's not me calling him weak, it's because he gets like 10 blocks a game, so I can't judge. Heating was actually pretty low between the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers. It was high, but compared to what we've seen in these playoffs, it's been a little low. Oilers out-hitting the Stars when it comes to hits per shot against, hitting the Stars for 1.08 times the Stars got a shot on them, whereas the Stars didn't give as much punishment to the Oilers. It was more like regular season version of punishment to the Oilers. The Florida Panthers will absolutely be a different story. Every team's a different story, but I mean, just hitting alone is a massively different story. Once again, the Oilers underperformed the face-off circle, but not as badly as they did against the Canucks. Again, I keep saying this, the Oilers were one of the best face-off teams coming into the playoffs, but Vancouver, they sucked in the circle. They were manageable in the circle, but obviously not reliable. The Oilers winning only 47.9% of the face-offs, but they still managed. The story, of course, as it has been all throughout the playoffs, is the Oilers' special teams. No matter how good their 5-5 is, their special teams are great. And the reason I'm not just saying the power play is because the Oilers' penalty kill was perfect during the series. I talked about in the last video how they have 27, 28 straight penalty kills in a row. Keep in mind that does have to do with teams they've played. I think Florida will be the best power play that they will be facing. So I don't expect that streak to go much longer, but still, incredibly impressive work by the penalty kill, who was outshining the power play, who was good. The Oilers' power play was still pretty good, but still, yeah, that penalty kill is just amazing. If you want to take a little nap during a game, just make sure that the Oilers are on a penalty kill, and you could take a little 2-minute nap, and you won't miss a thing. Anyways, unless you enjoy watching penalty kill, and at some point it does get enjoyable watching just how efficient they are. So going forward, the Dallas Stars will go back to the drawing board. There's not much concern there. A lot of their key contributors are still quite young. However, Joe Pavelski is likely going to retire, which is very unfortunate. I would have loved to see him get a cup. Obviously, I'm glad the Oilers are moving on and not Joe Pavelski, but still kind of feel bad for him for how much he fought in the playoffs and to still not get a cup after all these years, 18 years. It sucks. I'm a big fan of his, but we'll see. Maybe he can get his name on the cup as a coach or something. Anyways, so moving on for the Stars, like I said, a lot of their key contributors are still quite young. They still have a good mix of veteran leadership and young talent. They'll be back. I have no doubt about it. And if not, Jim Neal will draft 3 All-Stars because that's what he does. As for the Oilers, as I said, they get to move on to the Stanley Cup Finals. They hope to be the first Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup since 1993 when the Montreal Canadiens won it. The Oilers, like I said, also have most recently were in the finals in 2006. They lost to the Carolina Hurricanes, and after that, it kind of fell apart. The roster fell apart, beginning with Chris Pronger leaving. I believe it was at the behest of his wife, but whatever. What's done is done, and eventually the roster fell apart. And then came in just this carousel of GMs and different GM plans and coaches and different coaching plans making it very hard for a lot of the young guys that were coming in to be able to develop in the Oilers. And after 2006 began the decade of darkness, where for 10 straight years the Oilers did not make the playoffs until Connor McDavid, among other players, helped the Oilers make the playoffs in 2017. It took a few years for that team to become consistent playoff appearances. Recently, they've been in the playoffs, I think, 4 years in a row now. This is the farthest they've gone, obviously, since 2006. But no, the Oilers haven't won without Mark Messier. But they do have Paul Coffey as an assistant coach, so maybe. What else was I going to say about the Oilers in this run? Oh yeah, Nugent Hopkins. He's become a fan favorite just because of how much he's had to go through. He was probably the only young guy who was still managed to develop into a really good player. Maybe he could have been better if things weren't so crappy in Edmonton when he came, but who knows, he's still a really great player to have. And Taylor Hall would go on to still be pretty talented. He won a Hart Trophy, but you do think about some of the other guys we had, like Nail Yakupov. Could have something been better if we didn't weren't such a mess. That's not to say it's our fault for Nail Yakupov's bust, but maybe if he had some support, he wouldn't have been. Who knows? But what's done is done. The Oilers, like I said, are going to be in the Cup Finals, and I am really excited. Even though I had it in my predictions, it's still hard to believe because I don't like getting my hopes up. If I was a player and in the room, I would have that belief, of course. But as a fan, and realistically, it's tough. You can be as good as you want, you still not make the playoffs. But here the Oilers are, and they'll face the Florida Panthers, which I will cover in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like on the like button down below. Love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And hey, subscribe for more. That's it for now, and I'll see you when I see you next.